Hey all, so here's the third war of the season, and as you can see, a very different team this time. I am bringing House of X again, because he does unlock some more annoying nodes, but I am actually going to fight with him this war, which makes me happy. So first up we have I-Hulk on this node up here. This has personal space regen, and so that makes it pretty easy for him to gain a lot of gamma, which is why we went ahead and used our light combo enders to switch into Blitz Protocol there and remove those early ones. A few more have now triggered though, and so we are gaining a ton of protocol charges. We will very easily be an Eradicate next time we throw our special 2. Now he is picking up willpower from that cowardice, which is a bit of an issue, but basically the idea here is that Nimrod is just going to do enough on passive shocks for this to be fine. His AI does get a little bit annoying because ideally we would have thrown this special 2 with the energy vulnerability still up. It's a pretty big multiplier, but this still helps. Having him down to about a third when only at 8 gamma is a pretty good rate, because if you follow that through, it means he'll be at 12 when we get him to 0, and that means that he won't be able to regen because he doesn't get to 15. So we're just going to have to stay on top of that. We throw this next one, and there, we're good to go. So excellent counter for this because he keeps the regen under control and even benefits from it. So much of his damage is damage over time, not his actual hits, and a large chunk of that is passive, so no willpower. Really, really strong counter. Not quite as hard as somebody like Warlock, but Nimrod is just a tank, so I'm happy to use him there. First House of X pre-fight here. Honestly, maybe I shouldn't have used it, because it is going to allow us to stun freely, and I was kind of holding on to the control from that. But I think that's probably only necessary if we don't have Defiance. And so we need to worry about, knocking him down with heavies without having to worry about reparries to bait out those special ones. Because we do have Defiance, and we can dex all we want, then reparrying and, baiting out specials is not going to be much of an issue. We're going to trigger Masochism over time regardless, because She-Hulk has so many other debuffs on basically anything she does that isn't basics. So I think in future wars I actually would have held on to that for some other node, or to make Magneto himself stronger in a later fight. We'll get to that. But at the end of the day, Dormammu is a larger character, so She-Hulk's Furies last longer. We're doing more damage than normal, and we're just not having any trouble out-damaging that regen. Despair is mitigating it a little bit, but we're not keeping a ton of debuffs up. So, you kind of have to weigh the benefit we are getting from Despair with the willpower healing actually working against us. I think ultimately it's kind of a wash, and that just comes down to She-Hulk's damage versus large mystics being pretty darn good. So then we move on to this Mojo. I kind of paused and waited here and thought about it for a second, because this is not a great matchup for She-Hulk specifically, because she doesn't actually have shock immunity. She doesn't have stagger, she doesn't have armor break, she doesn't have purify, she doesn't have any of the things that we would be using Captain America for here with his usual team. And so basically this is a play perfectly, make sure you don't give any Furies to the opponent, and I was kind of testing to see if the shocks would kill us. I had a suspicion that between willpower and just, the relatively low chance per armor up for them to apply, that we would be able to get through this. But again, the key is, do not mess up strike counter, do not give Mojo any Furies. That should be fine as long as we parry a good amount, and we should be holding on to our damage output pretty well, because again, Mojo is an XL champion, and so it's not that difficult to get him to throw these special ones. That is, if we are not accidentally parrying him, because some of those were definitely supposed to be dexes and get him to throw his special one instead of stunning him yet again and running out the time on our Furies. But that does happen sometimes. And there I make a mistake. I really have no idea why I did that. My brain just short-circuited. I was in my rotation, parry heavy, parry medium light light, parry medium light, parry medium light, special one. You do that over and over and over again, and strike counter cannot hurt you. But if you throw 2 heavies in a row, like I did, well, now those shocks are ticking for a whole lot more. And some of our Furies fell off, in part because of the confusion there, and also in part because he's just starting to really gain more prompts. The power gain is adding up, so we're having to bait more specials, and that is causing more time. And so it, like, all of a sudden, we're losing the HP race. Between him getting to his special 2 from a bunch of unlucky prompts, between the pace of the fight slowing down and us losing some Furies, and him having Furies and those shocks doing more, we're all of a sudden in trouble. This is still possible to win, but it's not easy. We're basically relying on luck at this point. I go ahead and throw this. I think it's still possible. Let's see, do I get another shock? No, that was the problem. Okay. I had forgotten about that because, yeah, it looks like I should have clutched that out, but then the Assassin Mastery decided to tell me where I could shove it. So that's unfortunate, but that's exactly why defenders place with Assassin. It's why you should not, in a war where the outcome really matters to you, use an option where you might get down to the last 1/5 of your health. Because that was kind of the plan with this one, right? If I made even one mistake, which was all it took, then I got down into the last 20% of my health, and then I'm relying on luck, because that's what Assassin makes your parries. So, good reminder of that lesson. Definitely would use a harder counter like Cap next time, but we can leave that be for now. So moving on to the reason that I did bring She-Hulk instead of Cap or somebody else, we have this Sasquatch on node 25, the Footloose Miniboss. And this also has kinetic transference. This is a fairly nasty node. There are a lot of ways of dealing with the Footloose buffs themselves, but in general, you also end up worrying about Wrath of Tanarak a little bit. In my experience, the best way to take Sasquatch with She-Hulk is often a mix of special 1s and special 2s, which means that you don't always have 100% uptime on the exhaustions, and so he often does get into Wrath of Tanarak eventually. I'm personally not that scared of Wrath of Tanarak. I feel comfortable dealing with it, and the fight goes down more quickly this way for me. I don't have to worry about kinetic transference because I have the Petrify up a good amount of the time. This is more comfortable for me. You can definitely also play this fight just spamming special 1s and keeping the exhaustion up the entire time. You might be rolling the dice a little bit more with his power control, hoping he throws specials, but assuming he does, it should be totally fine. There's really not a ton of risk in that. I think either way is okay. But then now we're out of Wrath of Tanarak. We have 6 Furies. Kinetic Transference is actually helping us to an extent because we are trying to mitigate it, but it's also giving him more specials, so we're keeping our Furies up. And that's 90 seconds to take down a rank 4 Sasquatch. Now, I will point out I did use power back boosts for that and a power start. I'm starting to see them stack up in my inventory. If you don't do that, I think that the right move is definitely the special 1 spam. But with those boosts, throwing a couple of them can help. Now, you'll notice that I checked my boost there because I actually edited out a full minute of server lag, which caused that power start boost to not carry over to this apocalypse, where it definitely isn't necessary because Nimrod is a tank and a half, but it would have been nice. It just would have been nice to have a little bit extra power, maybe get to a special 2 sooner, get the energy vulnerability up soon, whatever. It is what it is, but like, I hope that the maintenance, I think that's tonight, isn't it? um, does make the servers a little smoother because loading times have been a bit rough since the update. So here's hoping, but Nimrod versus Apocalypse is just a very, very simple matchup. The only risk of this particular node is if you do not remove Apocalypse's prowess, then because of the node itself giving him an extra prowess, he can be unblockable on his special attacks. Nimrod turns that off, and then it's just a weaker than normal Apocalypse. Very simple. So now the fight that I'm actually using House of X for to get a pre-fight back, you'll notice I'm down to 0 charges because I donated one to the Power Snack Miniboss, which was a Penny Parker. And that is going to be kind of unfortunate because that means that we have no chance at getting prowess buffs from our basics. We can only get them from our heavies, which also gives us an upper limit of 3. It also means that I need to land those heavies, which kind of requires heavy counters, means taking some extra block damage, and I don't know, I wasn't super comfortable with the spacing, so you'll see me just not do that. And because I don't do that, and I don't have many prowess up, we have another problem, which is that House of X relies on having at least 1 prowess, basically all the time, because that's what makes his abilities actually reliable. It gives him extra ability accuracy, it gives him extra duration on his effects. It's just a really, really big deal for keeping his kit together, is to have at least 1. And so I definitely should have woven a Fury in here somewhere. I wasn't super comfortable with it, so I didn't. But that's just something to duel for if I end up taking this when it really matters. Same reason we didn't get any bleeds there, because again, we're missing out on some ability accuracy from having a single prowess. I definitely should have responded to that parry stun right there. I think Hard Knock Life that's on this node was so in my head that I was like, oh, okay, I need to make sure I don't parry. And so when I did by accident, I was like, uh-oh, I parried. And so that split second it took me to think that kept me from responding. Unfortunate, something I can duel for just to be ready. But that's okay, because one of the biggest reasons that he took that particular fight, aside from it being metal, was to get another pre-fight for this Wong, because this is definitely good placement for Wong. Mighty Charge means that you have to re-parry to land stuns, and if you do that, often he is just going to heavy, exactly like he did right there, and so he goes unstoppable a good chunk of the fight. Additionally, if he's throwing heavies, then you have to worry about making sure you actually have a heavy counter down so that you can land that when he's in between 90 and 100 energy to prevent that big detonation that is kind of the core of his defensive kit. So that's our goal, is use the House of X pre-fight, make sure that we can land heavies when he's above 90 energy so that we don't take that damage back, and if we can, get some intercepts in there so that the fight just goes more quickly. But because we have the Defiance tag and we're not going to be feeding him Mystic Dispersion, we can safely dex, we can bait all the special ones that we want, we don't have to push him to his special 2 and worry about that evade or the block damage. This is just a very, very simple fight. Now, we are probably going to lose Furies throughout, because Wong is, I believe, only size medium, and so She-Hulk's Furies aren't lasting quite as long. It's not as easy to refresh them. That's totally okay. She doesn't need them to win this fight, but we are going to go for a few intercepts just to speed it up. So like I said, we're just baiting special ones. That's the easy evade. You can outrange it. You don't have to worry about projectiles. Do a light intercept there off of the backdraft, because that's generally the safer way to do it. And then we just need to land a couple more. I didn't need to go for the Fury there, but it's She-Hulk, so it's fun. And then last fight is this Wolverine Weapon X on Stunning Reflection Polka Dot Power, node 53, that mini-boss over on the right. And so the thing here is that, yes, you can use Nimrod, but it's going to be much more difficult than normal to get to your special 2. Because the only power we're going to get is from those active shocks when we remove his regens. Now, we could have used a power start boost. Those do work here. In a tighter war, I'm pretty sure I would have done that. It would have helped a significant amount. But for now, we don't really need to do that. So now he's unblockable. We waited out the unstoppable. He did catch me off guard with that second medium there, and of course it crit. Why wouldn't it crit? But the important thing here is to just try and stay a little out of range of him, block when we can, and bait out those heavies right there. It's called blocking to dash. I've talked about it before, and it's really one of the most important things for fighting Weapon X, because intercepting him is scary. You want to be countering those heavies. Notice that our power is starting to tick up from all of those active shocks. I definitely should have ended that last combo with a light. I also should have seen that he was trying to bait me and not gotten caught on that dash back, and then I definitely should not have come in early after that heavy while the unstoppable was still active. That's just, again, something to duel for, because that timing is important. You want to make sure that you don't mess it up. You can also, if you're not feeling comfortable with it, just wait for the next one, honestly. He will eventually throw another heavy. You run a small risk of being backed up, but if you're good at the block dash thing to bait out heavies, it's not the end of the world. You can usually stay on top of it. You can hit his block to create space. One way or the other, you eventually get to the special 2, you go into Eradicate, and that's kind of all she wrote. Nimrod is a really, really good counter there. One of the best Weapon X counters overall. Alright, well I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I definitely, as much as I've been enjoying the Cap and Sam teams, I enjoyed the change of pace a little bit. I like dusting off She-Hulk. And I will catch y'all next time. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and take care.